Now, the state of the world. Again, just my view. We have just entered the most critical decade in all of human history. What? You're kidding. Who says? Why? How? What does that mean? What does it mean? Demand of us, of me. There have been a lot of critical decades and centuries and millennia and eons. You know, of a species that's 50,000 years old, 200,000, 2 million, part of a life force of 2 billion on a 4 billion-year-old planet in a universe that's 13.7 billion years old. How can this be the most critical decade in human history? Other times thought they were it. They were wrong. This is it. This is it. We're in the midst of a whole system transformation, a time of chaos, crisis, and possibility. We're facing multiple interlocking crises of global warming, HIV/AIDS, gender inequality, increasing poverty, failed governance, unsustainable energy. But the good news is we have the tools and the technology to respond to all of this favorably. However, what do we lack? The will and the collective decision and the collective action to respond as a species. And I believe the human species is at risk today. And I believe that all life forms on this planet are at risk today. So we must at one and the same time transform individual consciousness and behavior and collective culture and systems. This is the Wilbur quadrants. Consciousness, behavior, culture, systems. We have to do it all, not only bottom up as ICA or top down as global policy, but transforming hearts and minds of the 6.7 billion of us humans on this fair planet. So this crisis, though, the best news, though, is that this crisis is an opportunity to reinvent human society based on principles of justice, equity, sustainability, and participation. When everything's going down, then it's the time to revision, reboot, reinvent. What appears to be the breaking down of civilization is what? The future blowing wildly in our faces. And it is wild. Have you noticed? The teabaggers are marching on Washington with guns. You know, they've announced. It's crazy.
The Tea Party.
The Tea Party. And that's just one tiny little. So I want to talk about the state of the world as crisis and opportunity. The crisis is utterly real, utterly apparent, utterly upon us, and yet the opportunity to reinvent, reboot, revision, recreate is at hand. This is really the end of a civilization. You know, civilizations do rise and fall, as we know. So what is coming to an end is the industrial civilization based on fossil fuel and based on a paradigm of consumption and production. It's over, folks. It's dying. Look at the economy. Look at the fiscal systems. Look at energy. Now, I know there's a lot of debate and controversy over global warming. But what I read, and I'm finding that I'm reading more and more every day the last 2 years about global warming. Whereas my attention used to be on local governance, local development, I've now not been able to stay away from this issue. And what I read, the best scientists, and I know there's controversy, there were a couple of emails and that, But the overwhelming evidence, if you read the science, if you read the literature from Lester Brown and the International Panel on Climate Change, if you read James Hansen of NASA, if you read, the overwhelming evidence is what? That because of human action and the emission of carbon, methane, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, going over 350 parts per million in the atmosphere because of human activity of industrialization based on fossil fuels, coal, natural gas, oil that we've extracted from our planet that's non-renewable, that even though we created a lifestyle of abundance for so many people around the planet, the unexpected consequence, the unintended consequence, was a destruction of that civilization. Isn't that interesting? This great civilization of progress and development and high standard of living for millions and billions of people is resulting in the collapse of that civilization. We are so successful. And so now we're being called, to renewable energy of water, wind, thermal, hydro, biomass, solar, of course. So what's happening is, ask Tatwa about the melting of the glaciers in the Himalayas and what that will mean when there is no more ice to melt. It's just gone. Or talk to anyone in the Andes. It's gone. The glaciers are melting. People are having to move elsewhere. Greenland ice cap is sliding into the sea rapidly than any scientist ever dreamed. All the computer models were wrong. It's happening much faster. The North Pole, the South Pole, melting much faster than anyone dreamed. What's going to happen? Just by virtue of physical reality of Gaia, the Earth as a living organism will adjust herself. She'll be fine, by the way. It's just life. It's just human species and other forms of life that will suffer. Planet Earth has billions of more years to keep swirling around the sun and the galactic center. She's okay. Don't worry about her. But life. And I'm rather attached to life forms. I find I really am. I'm very attached to my species and to other species of animals and plants. I admit it. I am very deeply attached. I have a love affair going. And so do you, and so do all of us. So what's going to happen if we don't reduce? Are we awake? Are we going to wake up in time? I'm worried. And I'm part of a group, the State of the World Forum, that's working on this to reduce carbon emissions by 80% by 2020. Some people are saying we have till 2050. No. We have 10 years before the systems will... The tundra in Siberia is melting. You know what it will release? And elsewhere? Methane. Methane is much more powerful a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. And that will create a more rapid cycle of destabilization of the whole ecosystem of planet Earth. So that's the crisis. What's the opportunity? To invent sustainable human development. We haven't had it. We've had industrial fossil fuel, myth of progress, consumption, production, development. It is dying. That civilization is dying. Good news, a new civilization must be called into being. Who's going to do that? How? Where? When?